Welcome back to the shop. I'm Jeff from Today's Craftsman, and we're gonna be trimming out a door today. So you may have seen in the episode on the drawer slides episode. It feels weird on YouTube calling it an episode, but Rob shot the video on the Salice F70s, and we showed you a little sneak peek of a window seat that we're building. So we have some doors here from our buddies at New Doors. They're a solid HDF, which is high density fiberboard, similar to MDF, but has a bunch of advantages over regular MDF. They manufacture one-piece HDF doors, and they're down probably about 90 minutes, 2 hours south of us here in New Jersey. Chris and Dan, great guys. So we got some doors from them. And they offer several different profiles, you know, with a chamfer here, with a bead, raised panel. This is just a standard shaker, but what we need in this door, or drawer front, which is what this is, you know, to come close to what's existing in the house, is a little OG. And we don't have a lot of room to play with here. We only have 5/16 of an inch from this flat panel to the rails and stiles. So we had some difficulty trying to find an OG molding that we could put in here. So we're gonna take you through what we tried and what we ended up coming up with to make this happen. So our first inclination when you know, faced with this task of adding an OG here was to just, you know, buy a bit and try and make our own molding. So we started out with this bit from Amana. It's called, you know, a base molding bit is what they're calling it. And you know, you can see here that there's quite a bit of height in this bit. So I have some examples here of, you know, things we were trying to do, some different profiles that we were getting off of this. And you know, we found out pretty quickly that this wasn't going to work because we only have that 5/16 of an inch here. So after that, we moved on to this. So this is shorter than this bit here. So we thought, oh yeah, that'll work. So that didn't work either. We weren't able to get enough of a profile and get the right height. You know, you can see we're like down to nothing there. You know, depending on where you place it, you end up with just like a cove. So this didn't work. Then, actually John was here and we were talking about it. He said, why don't you just buy a doorstop molding and rip off the OG? So I went to our local building supply, I picked up a doorstop and ripped off the OG, but it's too small. So this is only 3/8 of an inch in this direction. I was able to rip it and get our little reveal here, which is what we want, but this is only 3/8 of an inch, you know, from here to here. What we need is 3/4 or something close to 3/4. I would have settled for, you know, say 5/8. But this is just too small. Doesn't look anything like what's in the house. So we ordered another bit. So now I think this was like 70 bucks. This is a good bit. That was like 70. This is probably about 30 or 40. Ordered another $30 bit. It's a yellow bit, which I was talking all kinds of trash about. But it looked like it would work. It's called a shallow OG bit. So I put it into the shaper this morning and I ran some test pieces, and same thing, you know, not getting enough of a profile. I'm ending up with too much height. And you can see here, it's taller than this. So we can't have that. We need it to be below the surface of these rails and stiles. So after looking online again to try and find a molding that we could just buy, I decided that I was just gonna buckle down and figure out how to make this work. So what we can do is I'll take you over to the shaper and I'll show you, you know, what kind of fixture I made to be able to make this molding. So here we are at the shaper. We seem to spend a lot of time at the shaper on this channel. And you can see here I have this big chunky piece of lumber that I put a 15-degree angle on. And what that does is basically it's taking, you know, an OG bit is kind of, it's not an easy shape to make with your hand. Let's say the OG bit is kind of like this. What I'm actually doing is I'm not turning the bit, but I'm turning the piece to shallow it out. So I'm flattening out the bit by actually putting the material up at an angle. So this material is going to feed into the shaper just like this. You know, so I'm approaching this bit at a flatter angle. So the way that we're running this, we're running the profile onto the edge, and then we're actually ripping it off on the table saw. So we're not putting it here on the face of the board, we're putting it on the edge and then ripping it. So what I did is I ran 2 sides or 2 edges, and then I would go over to the table saw, rip them off, come back here, run the 2 sides, and then I jockeyed back and forth. So what we can do is turn this on, we'll get dust collection, and we'll run both sides, and we'll go rip it off the table saw. On roll. Wait for the dust collector to stop making noise. At the table saw, so we're gonna make our 1/4 inch thick molding now. So we need to rip this at a 1/4 inch. So we were just talking with John. You can do this where your the piece you're keeping is on the outfeed side, not the outfeed, the offcut side of the blade. By using a stop like this mag switch that we showed the other week. You can set this up, at the specified distance between the blade to here. You can bring your piece in and set your fence. I opted to just set the fence to a 1/4 inch and leave it set up. So I had the table saw running and the shaper running at the same time, and I was just sort of bouncing back and forth. So set my saw to a 1/4 inch. Set my blade height, and I would just rip both sides. So we hit dust.
I hope you're enjoying the show, and now a word from our sponsor.
Just wanted to jump in here for a second and tell you about these new sanders that we've been using. These are the X-Sand 3x4 orbital sanders by Unita, and if you can look at this door, you can see the form factor. I don't want to touch this because we just painted it, but you can see the form factor is perfect for getting inside of these panels, and they sand really nice. We use these for all of our finishing. So we do have a coupon code. You can go to sandpaper.com, which is Unita's website. Use the code JOINERY, Joinery 15, and get 15% off on a sander. They have orbital sanders or some sandpaper. So I made I don't know, about 20 sticks of these. We have 5 doors to do. Well, really there's no doors. They're all drawers and panels, drawer faces and panels. And after I ripped them here, I gave them a little sanding with a soft block to sort of ease all these edges. And then we went ahead and mitered them. So I have all of them cut aside from one. So what we can do is I'll show you how I took some measurements and use the miter sled here to cut the pieces. We have our little miter sled here for the table saw. So super simple. Piece of Baltic birch with some HDPE runners. We like to use a table saw anytime we're cutting small moldings. Just cutting something small like this on the miter saw, it starts to feel really grabby. The miter saw, it bucks when you pull the trigger, and this is much more controlled, and we find that we get a better result here. So what I like to do is cut a miter on one end. This is a bad example because it's too short. But I'll cut a I'll cut a miter on one end, and I'll hold it up, and I'll make a mark, and I'm gonna just creep up on this cut until I get a nice fit here. I want it to be tight, but I don't want to force it in. And then I'm just gonna cut 2 of those pieces and move on to these sides. You can see how these go in just with just a little bit of pressure. One thing to note is with the new doors, these are really square corners for a machined door like this. You know, so they had to get in here with a router, a CNC router, and make this cutout. A lot of times when you see one-piece doors, this is like a really round corner. This is pretty square, but it's not perfectly square, so I can't fit these pieces all the way in the corner because we have that radius corner. So I'm actually fitting them in like, you know, 1/8 of an inch off just to get that full width. What we're gonna do is we're gonna assemble these outside of the door. That way we can sand them, and we're not trying to sand inside of our panel here and digging up the door. So we're gonna assemble them outside of the door. We'll be able to round these corners a little bit, and they'll press right in. We've got our pieces that fit within our door panel. And this is as simple as some glue and Collins clamps. I think we've showed these before. We've shown these before. These are little spring miter clamps, so these will squeeze the miters together. So anytime I'm doing miters, I like to double glue everything, meaning I'm gonna put glue on this side and this side because end grain, especially on MDF, will suck up this glue. So I'm going to go around and put glue on all of these miters. So get them lined up pretty good. Take our Collins clamp, and so that's squeezing that together. You might have seen the squeeze out get bigger when the clamps went on. And we were just talking with John about this product, this HDF product. It's got much higher resin content than regular MDF, and like if you were to wet regular MDF like this, like I just did with this wet paper towel, you could kiss that goodbye. But this stuff is really good. It's made by Weyerhaeuser here in the U.S. It has a really hard face, so hard that these pins have a hard time sometimes grabbing it. There we go. So I'm just going to clean up some of the squeeze out. I'm going to put this to the side. We'll let it dry for, say, 30 minutes, 45 minutes. Here's one that we actually glued up earlier. And you can see why we do this outside of the door, because, you know, anytime you have miters, you need to sort of blend these together. So I have a piece of sandpaper that I contact cemented to an old piece of Scotch-Brite, which conforms nicely to this shape. So I'm able to get in here and you know, blend these corners without marring up the door, because if I tried to do this inside of here, there's no way to do it without, you know, hitting the door. So give this a nice sand. I went ahead and I put that little radius on the corners, so just with the sandpaper, you know, breaking these corners. You can see, here's our door. When we install these for good, for final fitment, we'll put some glue back here. See, we got a real nice fit. And we'll shoot a couple little pins in there for good measure. We'll be ready to shoot primer on these and top coat and deliver the project to the client, because they're patiently waiting. You know, sometimes these little details, like a quarter-inch thick OG, cause the most problems. We've been trying to figure this out for, I don't know, 2 weeks now. So I'm glad to have all these doors done. Like I said, the client has been patiently waiting. This job has been getting, you know, the can has been kicked down the road a little further than we would have liked. But we'll probably have it done this week or next week. And yeah, I mean, this is a good example that could translate to a lot of different things. You know, using an angled fence to change sort of the angle of attack, if you will, on either the table saw. You know, you can cut acute angles on the table saw using the same technique. You know, you could use it on the shaper in a multitude of ways. So if you have any questions about what we did or any comments, be sure to leave them below. We're going to try to start releasing a video every Saturday at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time, I guess. So stay tuned for that. We want to make it like a nice tradition for people on a Saturday morning, sit down with a cup of coffee and watch today's Craftsman. So if there's anything you'd like to see, let us know, and we'll see you on the next one.